How's it going, everyone? It's me, it's Count. I hope you're having a good day, and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Alright, we are about to get Thundurus Incarnate Form back in 5-star raid battles this week. It is a pretty easy raid boss, and it actually has a really cool shiny form as well. I'm going to be explaining how you can get it in this video, so let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, let's get into Thundurus Incarnate Form. So, this is one of those legendaries that unfortunately doesn't have any kind of relevance in either PvP or PvE. The number of top tier electric types are numerous in Pokemon Go, and most of them will overshadow this Pokemon. However, it does have a really neat looking shiny form, and most players will consider it a collector's item because of how infrequently Niantic releases it. But before we get into how you can get its shiny form, let's go over the brass tacks. Defeating Thundurus is not too difficult, but you will need to bring the right counters and the right amount of trainers in the raid group. So let's go over that right now. Thundurus Incarnate Form is an electric and flying type legendary Pokemon, just like Zapdos. It will have pretty much the same weaknesses and resistances to that Pokemon. It is weak against ice and rock, but it resists ground, bug, fighting, grass, flying, and steel. Thundurus' type combination doesn't synergize each other, meaning none of its attacks will be a major threat to any of your ice types or rock types. Well, except for one of them, which we will get into later. Thundurus is weather boosted by rainy or windy weather. If you want a perfect IV of this Pokemon, you will want one that is 1911, or 2389 if it is weather boosted. However, getting a perfect IV of this Pokemon is not a high priority. This is because it lacks a lot of relevance in either PvP or PvE. You could use it as a solid placeholder before you get Zekrom, but there's just so many comparable electric types you could use in raids. Therefore, don't feel pressured to get the perfect IV of this Pokemon. Defeating Thundurus will require a group of about 5 to 7 trainers that are at least level 35. If you have lower level trainers, you will need more than that. If you're a max level player and want to defeat this raid boss with the least number of trainers as possible, then you could potentially do it with 3 to 4. Next, let's go over the best counters for this raid. If you plan to bring a Mega Evolution, I suggest rolling with Mega Aerodactyl. It has a solid rock type moveset, and it is overall going to deal a lot more damage than most other rock type or even ice type Megas. In terms of Shadow Pokemon, Shadow Tyranitar with Smackdown and Rock Slide is going to be your best bet. It is incredibly strong, and it has a decent amount of defensive stats to make up for the Shadow debuff. The good thing about Thundurus Incarnate Form is that most of the best counters are actually budget friendly in terms of Stardust and Rare Candy. You can roll with Rampardos with Smackdown and Rock Slide, Tyrantrum with Rock Throw and Meteor Beam, Terrakion with Smackdown and Rock Slide, Galarian Darmanitan with Ice Fang and Avalanche, and Rhyperior with Smackdown and Rockpecker. If you bring any of these Pokemon to Thundurus, you will have a much easier time taking it down. So yeah, just to recap, Thundurus has a weakness to ice types and rock types. While there are plenty of good ice types you could bring, I suggest going with any of the rock types I listed. The raid can be pretty easy if everyone brings the right counters, as this raid boss doesn't have any big threats. The only charge attack that Thundurus has that you should worry about is Brick Break. However, it doesn't benefit from a same type attack bonus, and it doesn't deal a ton of inherent damage, but it is super effective against both ice types and rock types, so it is one you should watch out for. Regardless, I would still bring mostly rock types to this raid. The damage output from your Pokemon will far outweigh any kind of damage that Thundurus can deal, and you will still need as much damage as possible if you are running with less than the recommended number of trainers. Not to mention, it's much easier to power up rock types considering how common most of the best counters are. Some of them might not be in the wild right now, but we've had several events that featured Larvitars and Cranidos over the past year, so you could be sitting on some great raid counters right now. I mean, if you raided Ho-Oh hardcore this past week, you probably already have the ideal setup good to go anyway. The nice thing with Thundurus is that there is an overlap like that with ideal counters. But yeah, ultimately, Thundurus isn't necessarily that important of a Pokemon anyway. You might be better off skipping this raid boss and saving up your Pokecoins and raid passes for the later bosses. We already have confirmation that Lugia is coming back immediately after Thundurus, and while that legendary isn't as relevant as it used to be, it is still going to be a lot more useful than Thundurus Incarnate Form, so do keep that in mind as you raid this boss. But let's say you still want to get the shiny form of this Pokemon. Well, how many raids will you need to do before you get it? Honestly, like every other legendary raid boss with the shiny form, it's going to come down to luck. The shiny rate for legendary raids is 1 in 20, which means every encounter is going to have a 5% chance that it will be shiny. As I've stated in previous raid guides, this doesn't mean you are guaranteed a shiny if you do 20 raids, but the more raids you do, the higher your chances of getting one will be. For the previous raid boss Ho-Oh, I did roughly 30 raids before I saw my first shiny. However, once I got a shiny Ho-Oh, I started to see them more frequently. Thus, if you really want this shiny, you'll just need to raid a whole bunch. There's nothing else really to it. I did mention earlier that this particular shiny does have some trade value because of its scarcity. Niantic doesn't often feature any of the incarnate forms of the Forces of Nature legendaries. This may be because they mostly don't have too much gameplay relevance, so they know players won't raid them as much as their Terrian forms. However, it may not hurt to have a couple shinies on hand in case you or someone you know is looking for it. It may not be worth the raid passes, however, especially compared to getting shiny Lugia. That particular legendary shiny is going to have even more value for much of the same reasons, so do plan accordingly while this raid boss is out. Honestly, considering how easy this raid boss is with a solid group, and just how budget friendly the best counters are, you could farm up this boss for rare candies and rare candy XL. If you have a ton of raid passes to burn through, this boss could be a way for you to free up some backspace. However, I personally don't think it's worth it. Since there are very few instances where you would actually use this Pokemon, I would rather spend those raid passes on something else. If anything, Thundurus is probably only worth your daily free raid passes at this point. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Leave your thoughts down below regarding Thundurus Incarnate Form. Are you planning to raid this boss for its shiny form? Let me know in the comments and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list, so if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.